You know how they say life can flip in a blink? Well, mine did, at a freakin' family barbecue, of all places. There I was, flipping burgers, laughing at Uncle Ted's lame jokes, when it happened. Alex, my husband's brother, looked at me, and bam. Next thing I knew, we were in a corner, kissing like the world was about to end. It was insane, impulsive, and, God, it was thrilling. But let me tell you, keeping a secret like that? It's like trying to keep a wildfire under a rug. It spreads, one way or another. Like this one time, I was at this cafe with Alex, trying to act all casual, sipping my latte like it was just a regular Tuesday. Then Mark calls. I should have just let it ring, right? But no. I answer, and of course, Alex has to go and say something right then. Mark heard him. I could tell by the way he went all, "Who's that?" in that voice he uses when he's trying not to sound mad. So now, I've got my husband on the edge, thinking who knows what. Does he confront me? Nah. Mark's not that guy. He starts tailing me instead, all detective style. I spotted him a couple of times, lurking behind newspapers and sunglasses, thinking he's all incognito. And here's the kicker. I planned this weekend getaway with Alex. Told Mark it was a work conference, the whole spiel about team building and synergy, you know? But I slipped up. Left the hotel booking open on my laptop. Mark's no tech whiz, but he knows how to read a confirmation email that's screaming romantic getaway for two. That's where I left it. A house of cards, ready to tumble. A husband in the shadows, a forbidden flame burning bright, and me, stuck in the middle, playing a game I had no idea how to win. Fine, you caught me. I blurted out, my back against the wall, literally and figuratively. Mark's eyes were wild, like a storm brewing over the ocean. I was at the cafe, but it's not what you think. A blatant lie, but what was I supposed to do? Admit to smooching his brother? The argument spiraled. Words like bullets, back and forth. Accusations. Denials. The works. I thought that was bad. I had no idea. Turns out, Mark's not just mad, he's gone full on James Bond. A GPS tracker in my car? Yeah, he did that. Sneaky, sneaky. I only found out later, but it explains how he was always one step behind me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. So, there I was, at this luxurious hotel with Alex, heart pounding, guilt gnawing at me, but excitement too. It was like living in a movie, only the plot was about to get a whole lot messier. Alex, with those eyes that always seemed to see right through me, dropped the bomb. Let's run away, just you and me. Run away? Was he serious? My mind was a whirlwind. Tempting? Hell, yeah. Smart? Not so much. Before I could even process it, guess who crashes the party? Mark. Yeah, Mr. GPS tracker himself. He must have followed my car. There he stood, in the doorway, looking like a thundercloud about to burst. What happened next? Chaos. Pure chaos. Mark lunged at Alex, fists flying. Alex, caught off guard, stumbled back. I jumped in, trying to play referee in a boxing match. Useless. I was shouting. Something about stopping, talking it out. Who was I kidding? Mark's fist connected with Alex's jaw. A sickening crack. Alex hit the floor like a sack of potatoes. Mark, panting like a bull, turned to me, his eyes a mix of hurt and fury. Is this what you want? He yelled. I had no words. Just stood there, shaking, as everything I thought I could handle spiraled out of control. The moment I pushed Mark, it was like everything switched to slow motion. He stumbled, arms flailing, then hit the ground with a thud that I felt in my bones. There he lay, unmoving, a haunting stillness in the midst of our storm. Panic set in. My heart was a drum in my chest, beating a frantic rhythm. We need to go, now. Alex grabbed my arm, pulling me away. I couldn't think, couldn't process. I just ran, following Alex blindly. We ended up at some dingy apartment, a friend of Alex's. Lay low here, he said, his voice a mix of worry and disbelief. The place was a mess, pizza boxes and beer cans like a teenager's den. But it was a shelter, a place to hide from the chaos we'd unleashed. Every second was a blur. My mind replayed the scene over and over. Mark's body hitting the floor, the sound echoing in my head. Guilt clawed at me, relentless and unforgiving. Alex tried to reassure me, but his words were just noise in the background. Then the call came. Alex's friend, face pale, handed me the phone. It's about Mark. My heart sank. Hospitalized. Coma. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt sick, the room spinning around me. How had it come to this? The police started sniffing around. Domestic violence, they said. Alex and I were prime suspects. Of course, we were. Who else? We were trapped in a nightmare, and the walls were closing in. Alex paced like a caged animal, muttering plans to get out of the city, start anew. But all I could see was Mark's face, still and silent on that hospital bed. Fear settled in, a constant companion. Every knock on the door made me jump. Every siren in the distance felt like it was coming for us. We were running out of options, out of time. And through it all, one thought haunted me. I had done this. I had pushed Mark. I had started this domino effect that was now crushing us all. Holed up in that dingy apartment, the air thick with tension, Alex and I were at each other's throats. We can't just keep hiding, I hissed, feeling the walls close in. Maybe we should turn ourselves in. But the thought of prison bars slamming shut made my stomach churn. Alex was pacing, his face a mask of fear and anger. And what? Throw away our lives? He shot back. We were stuck in a cycle of fear and indecision, each moment stretching into an eternity. In the midst of this mess, my best friend, Jess, called. She was clueless about the whole saga. You should visit Mark, she said gently, thinking she was being helpful. Her words were like a punch to the gut. Visit Mark? The man I betrayed, the man lying in a coma because of me? That guilt is a strange beast. It gnawed at me, relentless. So, I did it. Dressed in a hoodie and shades, heart-pounding, I walked into that hospital. Seeing Mark, so still, machines beeping around him, it was like a knife twisting in my chest. I wanted to scream, to apologize, to explain. But words are useless when you're the architect of someone's tragedy. Back at the apartment, Alex was unraveling. The guy who was once all charm and confidence was now drowning in bottles, his paranoia skyrocketing. They're going to find us, he muttered over and over, lost in a sea of booze and fear. It was like watching someone disintegrate right before my eyes. And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, the media exploded. CCTV footage from the hotel, Alex and I, looking like lovers on a secret escape. It was all over the news, our faces plastered on every screen. The headlines screamed scandal, betrayal, mystery. We were no longer just fugitives. We were a sensation, a story for the public to feast on. The world outside that apartment became a blur of flashing lights and sensational news reports. Our hideout felt more like a prison with every passing hour. Alex's paranoia, my guilt, the media circus. It was a storm raging around us, and we were right at its center, helpless and exposed. Ever been the star of your own scandal? Let me tell you, it's not as glamorous as the tabloids make it seem. 1 minute, I'm just a regular person. The next, I'm the other woman, plastered all over the news. Headlines screaming about the affair, the incident, speculating wildly. It felt surreal, like watching a movie of my life where I was the villain. Then came the call from my boss. We have to let you go, he said, his voice a mix of pity and discomfort. The scandal had tainted everything, my job included. I was toxic, a liability. I hung up and just sat there, numb. Jobless, friendless, and on the run. As if on cue, Alex's buddy, the one who'd been hiding us, decided he'd had enough. Sorry, but you guys gotta go, he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Can't blame him, really. The heat was on, and we were the fire. So, there we were, Alex and I, with our few belongings, drifting to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. It smelled of cigarettes and broken dreams. Our new home, if you could call it that. We kept the blinds closed, the TV volume low, as if that would somehow make us invisible. Then came the gut punch. Mark's family, the people I'd laughed with at countless dinners, celebrated holidays with, they publicly disowned us. A statement of support for Mark, condemning us. I read it online, each word like a shard of glass. I understood, but it hurt, you know? And the cops, they were closing in. They'd grilled Alex's friend, picked apart his story. It was only a matter of time before they'd connect the dots, find the trail leading straight to us. I could feel the noose tightening, the clock ticking down. In that dingy motel room, with the neon sign flickering outside, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. Lost job, lost family, lost self. Alex, with his haunted eyes, wasn't much better. We were two ghosts, clinging to the shadows, waiting for the inevitable knock on the door. The thing about hitting rock bottom is you think it can't get worse, but then it does. Alex, with his whiskey breath and bloodshot eyes, decided it was a good idea to call his family for help. "They'll understand," he slurred, fumbling with the phone. I told him it was a bad idea, but he wouldn't listen. His call went as well as you'd expect. His family was in shock. "You did what?" I heard his sister scream through the phone. They refused to help, and I could see the betrayal in Alex's eyes. He'd hoped for a lifeline, but all he got was a cold shoulder. Worse still, they called the cops. The very people we were trying to hide from. We barely had time to react. Blue and red lights flooded our motel room window, sirens wailing like banshees. "Time to go," I yelled, grabbing our meager belongings. We bolted out the back just as the police barged in through the front. It was like something out of a crime show, only there were no cameras, no retakes. Our escape was desperate and reckless. We found a car with the keys still in the ignition. Don't ask me why or how, but we took it. As we drove away, I could feel the last of my morals slipping away. We were car thieves now, on top of everything else. As we drove aimlessly, the reality of our situation sank in. The news was blaring on the radio, a nationwide manhunt for us. Our faces were everywhere, the country's most wanted. It was surreal, terrifying, and utterly, completely insane. Money ran low, desperation ran high. That's when we hit the convenience store. It was supposed to be quick, in and out. But when you're shaking and scared, nothing goes to plan. Alex, pointing a shaky gun at the terrified cashier, grabbed a handful of cash. I was lookout, heart hammering in my chest, praying no one would walk in. We left with a few $100, but it felt like we'd stolen $1 million. Guilt, fear, adrenaline, it was a toxic mix that left us both shaking. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the rearview mirror. Two strangers stared back, their eyes hollow, their souls lost. That night, parked in some deserted lot, the reality of our situation hit me like a ton of bricks. We were fugitives, running from the law, our families, and ourselves. Our lives, as we knew them, were over. All because of a kiss, a lie, and a series of bad choices that spiraled out of control. The thing about spiraling out of control is you don't realize how far you've fallen until it's too late. Take that convenience store robbery, for instance. Alex, playing the tough guy with a gun, got more than he bargained for. The store owner, a wiry guy with nerves of steel, pulled out his own gun. Bang! Alex's arm exploded in pain, blood soaking his shirt. There we were, in some dingy motel bathroom, me trying to play nurse to a gunshot wound. I had no clue what I was doing, hands trembling as I wrapped his arm with some makeshift bandage. Alex was gritting his teeth, trying not to scream. It was a mess, a real-life horror show. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered later, as Alex lay there, pale and sweating. "We have to split up." The words tasted like ash in my mouth. But it made sense, in a twisted way. Less attention, easier to move around. So, with a heavy heart, we said our goodbyes. Alex, with his wounded arm and haunted eyes, and me, with a soul so heavy I could barely stand. There I was, alone. Really alone for the first time since this whole nightmare began. The silence was deafening. I wandered aimlessly, every step feeling like a mile. My mind was a whirlwind of guilt and regret. What had I done? Why did I let it go this far? The weight of my choices crushed me, leaving me breathless. Then, huddled in a corner of a dingy bus station, I saw it. A news report on the TV hanging from the ceiling. Mark, my husband, had woken up from his coma. But the blow to his head had done something to his memory. He couldn't remember the incident, or me, or anything really. It was like a twisted gift, a cruel chance at redemption. Hope, a tiny flicker in the darkness, whispered in my ear. Maybe this was my chance to set things right, to turn myself in. It was crazy, but what part of my life wasn't at this point? I was tired of running, tired of hiding. Maybe facing the music, facing the consequences of my actions, was the only way to find some semblance of peace. So there I sat, on a cold, hard bench, contemplating the biggest decision of my life. Turn myself in, face the wrath of the law, the disappointment of my family, the shock of my friends. Or keep running, a ghost of my former self, lost in a world that no longer made sense. Sitting on that cold, hard bench at the bus station, lost in thoughts of surrender, I didn't notice the guy at first. He was just some random dude waiting for a bus, until his eyes met mine. Recognition flashed across his face, and I knew, right then, I was busted. The wanted posters, the news, my face was everywhere. I bolted, heart pounding, as he fumbled with his phone, probably calling the cops. The streets were a blur as I ran, each turn, each alley a desperate bid for freedom. But freedom from what? My choices? My mistakes? There was no escaping those. The chase was like something out of a movie. Me, sprinting through crowded streets, dodging people, cars, my own shadow. The sound of sirens grew louder, a wailing chorus to my frantic escape. In a moment of sheer panic, I spotted a fire escape on a building. Maybe I could hide, maybe get to the roof. It was a stupid idea, but fear isn't known for its logic. I climbed, my breath ragged, every rung of the ladder a step further from reality. But luck wasn't on my side. The police were right there, below me, shouting commands I barely registered. My hands slipped, sweat and fear a deadly combination. And then, I was falling, the ground rushing up to meet me. The impact was like nothing I'd ever felt. Pain exploded through me, a white-hot agony that blanked out the world. I lay there, broken, as the police swarmed over me. The end of the line, finally caught. Meanwhile, Alex, the man I'd risked everything for, was found in a bad way. His wound, left untreated, had turned septic. By the time the cops found him, he was delirious with fever, barely hanging on. We both ended up in the same hospital, worlds apart yet bound by our shared folly. There we were, two fugitives under heavy police guard, our grand escape culminating in a hospital ward. Me, with my broken body, and Alex, fighting for his life. It was a sobering reality, a far cry from the reckless romance and thrill-seeking that had led us here. Lying in that hospital bed, I had nothing but time. Time to think about every wrong turn, every bad decision. Time to face the truth I'd been running from all along, that in trying to escape my life, I'd only succeeded in shattering it beyond recognition. Lying in that hospital bed, bandaged and bruised, I felt like the world's biggest fool. Then Mark walked in. The look on his face, it was like a physical blow. His memory was patchy, but enough had come back to paint a pretty damning picture of his wife and brother. He didn't scream or shout. He just stood there, his eyes burning with a mix of confusion, anger, and something that looked a lot like heartbreak. Why? That single word, heavy with betrayal, echoed in the sterile room. I wanted to explain, to apologize, to do anything to ease the pain I saw in his eyes. But what could I say? That it was a mistake? An accident? The truth was too tangled, too messy. So, I said nothing, and he walked away. That silence between us was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. The trial was a blur. Courtrooms, lawyers, the endless drone of legal speak. Alex and I, side by side, yet miles apart, our fate in the hands of a jury that looked at us like we were the scum of the earth. And maybe we were. Guilty. The word rang in my ears, a final verdict on a series of bad choices. Long prison sentences for both of us. It was no surprise, but it hit hard. The gavel's bang was the sound of doors closing, of lives being irreversibly altered. Prison is a world of its own. Time moves differently here, each day a mirror of the one before. I had plenty of time to think, to replay every moment, every decision that led me here. The affair, the lies, the runaway plan, it all seemed like a bad dream, a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd lost everything, my husband, my freedom, myself. Then came the news that knocked the air right out of me. Alex was dead. My heart stopped for a beat. Suicide, they said. The weight of his actions, the guilt, the loss, it had been too much. I sat there, numb, the walls of my cell closing in. The man I'd risked everything for was gone, and all I was left with was the wreckage of our decisions. Lying in my cell at night, I'd stare at the ceiling, the darkness a blanket over my thoughts. What if I'd never kissed Alex? What if I'd been honest with Mark? The what-ifs were endless, a maze with no exit. But there was one truth I couldn't escape. I was responsible for so much pain, so much damage. And now, I had a lifetime to